Welcome to Echoes of the Land, where we connect the past to the present through the stories that shaped our world. I'm Micah, and today we're digging into the legacy of Native Americans during the time of Western expansion and how the struggles of the 1800s still impact us today. Let's start in 1830. The U.S. was growing fast. The government had embraced manifest destiny. The idea that white Americans were meant to take over the entire continent. That belief ignored something huge. Millions of indigenous people already lived on and cared for these lands. That same year, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act. It gave the government the power to force native tribes living east of the Mississippi River to move west. President Andrew Jackson backed it, calling it a generous act, but in truth, it caused terrible suffering. The most well-known result, the Trail of Tears. From 1831 to 1850, more than 60,000 Native Americans, including the Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole, were forced from their homes. Over 4,000 Cherokee people died on their journey due to hunger, diseases, and brutal conditions. And that wasn't a one-time tragedy. Throughout the 1800s, the U.S. made over 500 treaties with native tribes, and most were broken. Lands were taken through pressure, lies, and violence. The Homestead Act of 1862 gave settlers 160 acres of land that was often already promised to native nations. As settlers pushed west, native communities were forced into smaller, more isolated areas. Many lost access to traditional hunting and fishing grounds, sacred sites, and resources they depended on. But it wasn't just land that was taken. Native identity, culture, and language were under attack too. In the late 1800s, thousands of Native children were taken from their families and placed in government or Christian mission boarding schools, often far from home. The goal was to force them to adopt white culture. The motto, kill the Indian, save the man. Kids were given English names. They weren't allowed to speak their native language or follow their traditions. Many faced abuse, malnutrition, and were forced to work in terrible conditions. Many of these children never made it back home. Still, Native people resisted. In 1876, Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors defeated General Custer's forces at the Battle of Little Bighorn, a powerful act of resistance. Leaders like Sitting Bull and Chief Joseph stood strong against the U.S. military attacks. In quieter ways, families kept culture alive, passing down stories, songs, and ceremonies in secret, keeping traditions going no matter the cost. This history isn't just in the past. Its effects are still felt today on reservations, in courtrooms, and in daily life for many Native people. In 2016, the world watched the Standing Rock Sioux tribe stand against the Dakota Access Pipeline. The pipeline's route threatened sacred lands and clean water. And what started as a small protest grew into one of the biggest indigenous-led movements in recent history. Thousands of Native people and allies came together to protect what mattered. But Standing Rock was more than just a protest. It was part of a long fight for land, for respect, and for survival. Today, many Native communities still face major challenges. Let's talk about poverty. Native American communities often have poverty rates nearly 3 times the national average. On some reservations, unemployment is over 50%. That's not by chance. It's a result of generations of land loss, unfair laws, and limited access to resources. And healthcare is another issue. The Indian Health Service, which is supposed to provide care to Native people, is seriously underfunded. The government spends less than half as much per person on Native health care compared to others, and many Native communities are in remote areas, far from hospitals or specialists. This leads to higher rates of diabetes, heart disease, mental health issues, and shorter life expectancies. Another big concern is language loss. Many Native languages are nearly wiped out when kids were forced into boarding schools. Today, about 90% of indigenous languages in the U.S. are endangered. But there's hope. Tribes are starting language schools, making apps and dictionaries, and recording elders to keep these languages alive. Language is more than words. It's culture, identity, and memory. And then there's the crisis of the missing and murdered Indigenous women, or MMIW. Native women face violence at shocking rates, up to 10 times higher than the group in some areas. Nearly 85% have experienced violence, and many of these cases go unsolved, partly because of confusing laws about who has the authority to investigate, whether it's tribal, state, or federal police. Some cases aren't even recorded properly, but families and activists are demanding change, and while some are being taken, there's still a long way to go. Even through all this, Native communities are showing strength and leadership. Tribal colleges are growing, sacred lands are being reclaimed, and legal victories are being won. And in 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in McGirth v. Oklahoma that a huge part of eastern Oklahoma is still legally tribal land, recognizing a treaty that had been ignored for over a century. The fight to protect Bears Ears National Monument is another example. This land is sacred in many southwestern tribes, and after years of rollback, Native-led efforts helped restore its protected status. The story of Native America isn't a side note. It's central to our country's history and its future. It's a story of deep loss, but also power for survival and resistance. If we want true justice, we have to start by listening to these voices. Western expansion changed a continent, but it didn't erase Native peoples. We are still here, creating, leading, remembering, and thriving. Their voices aren't fading, they're rising. And real healing starts when we hear them. Thanks for listening to Echoes of the Land, and remember, history isn't just about what happened, it's about what's still happening. Until next time, I'm Micah. Be well.